Okay, hello everyone and welcome to this interview. My name is Tessa Kelly and I'm the Climate Change Coordinator for the International Federation of Red Cross Red Crescent Societies in Geneva, the IFRC. And I have the honour today to conduct this interview for the German Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction with John Harding, the head of the Climate Risk Early Warning Systems Initiative. So for decades, our Red Cross, Red Crescent staff and volunteers around the globe have been using early warning information to support communities and to ensure their safety and to help protect their livelihoods. And we know firsthand how critical early warning systems are to saving lives and livelihoods. But as revealed recently in this State of Climate Services report unveiled this week, we still have a long way to go to ensure that people and countries most at risk are covered by effective early warning systems. So it gives me great pleasure today to introduce John Harding, the head of the Climate Risk Early Warning Systems Secretariat, to talk about how CRUISE is addressing the gap that exists in the world's most climate vulnerable places. So John, I guess straight over to you. Could you tell us what is CRUISE and what does it seek to achieve and how?
Thank you, Tessa, and it's a pleasure to be addressing this meeting. CRUISE is a relatively new initiative. It was launched as part of the Climate Change Action Agenda in 2015 at the Paris Conference of the Parties. Its main focus is to support least developed countries and small island developing states put in place early warning systems for climate extreme events. Currently, we work in 44 countries through 14 projects. We have a portfolio of approximately $70 million US. And the way we work, obviously, the countries are very much in the lead of the programs, but we work through three, what we call implementing partners. It's three organizations that support the countries throughout the process of developing a program. And these three partners are the World Meteorological Organization, the World Bank, and the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. I'd just maybe add a few of our, let's say, our driving values that we try and bring into each one of our projects. We try and take a people-centered approach to everything we do. It means that local organizations are listened to and engaged, so that the investments are very much driven by the needs of the users of the early warning systems. We put a very strong emphasis on gender-sensitive programming. We try and support women's empowerment, but we also recognize that different genders access, process, and respond to information in different ways. And we try and bring this into our popular projects. And maybe also to add that, if you look at the size of our financing, we're one of the smaller, let's say, climate finance mechanisms out there. So although albeit very specialized, so focus specifically on early warning, early action, we try and create a favorable environment through our work that, let's say, leverages and promotes the effectiveness of additional financing that would come from other sources. So these are some of the principles that we apply throughout our work.
Excellent. And I think a lot of those principles certainly align with some of the IFRC principles and values. I'm just curious to clarify, when you talk about early warning systems, which hazards are you focusing on, or do you take a sort of more of a multi-hazard approach?
Yes. I mean, certainly we do. I mean, we try and adhere to a multi-hazard approach. We use a lot of these buzzwords often, multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral, multi-risk, multi-hazard. We don't always understand what that actually translates operationally in our projects. I mean, if you talk about multi-hazards, there's two definitions. It can mean that for any one, let's say, event that affects a community, there's often more than one hazard involved, and there's often one hazard triggering other hazards. We often refer to that as a cascading sequencing of events. That's obviously something we have to take into consideration when we develop our early warning systems. But multi-hazard also means that we try and work across different institutions that may have different responsibilities for any one given hazard. And if you look at any one country, I'm sitting here today in Geneva, Switzerland. In Switzerland, we have a different institution that monitors avalanches. We have a different institution that monitors hydrometeorological events. We have a different institution that looks at actually floods, and a different institution that looks at forest fires. So, and that's the case in many countries. So while that is obviously will continue to be the case, at the end of the day, if you're a decision maker, you want to protect your community, you don't want to be receiving different warnings through different channels or different operation procedures. You want one system, and so that's something that we try and promote through our work. We bring these different institutions that may be monitoring different hazards together, and try and have a common set of operation procedures and channels for these warnings, so that is very much what we call a multi-hazard approach to our operations.
Excellent. But I guess given that it's climate risk for crews, is the sort of entry point or the focus primarily the climate related hazards?
Yes, it's true. And of course, one of the main institutions that we are looking to build the capacities of are the national meteorological and hydrological services in the countries where we are working. These institutions obviously often have limited institutional capacity or not sufficiently visible and recognized. So we do have a strong focus on the types of events and hazards that are let's say covered by those institutions. That still doesn't mean that we don't look at when we work with those institutions, we look at a broader set of hazards, as in a way as broad as possible. So we wouldn't want to be setting up a system which would not fit some of the channel information related to tsunami risk simply because it's not related to weather or climate types of events.
Absolutely, that makes good sense. So I guess some of our listeners might be curious to know what is the German support and engagement in this initiative?
So Germany actually was one of the very first countries to contribute to the Cruise Trust Fund. Shortly after it was established, the French government was sort of led the push to set up this initiative, but the Germans stepped up very early, and we were very appreciated to have Germany on board. In particular, as recently they've stepped up again with a sizable contribution. So it's we're very thankful to the German government. The way the cruise is set up, the countries that engage actually, they have a very important role. Because first of all, they're contributing to a pooled trust fund, so they're recognizing that there's a value with regard to the coherence, to the scale of impact of joining efforts with other countries rather than going bilaterally. And I think that's very much to the credit of these governments. But they also have an important role in overseeing the quality, the effectiveness, the efficiency of our portfolio, linking into their national institutions that may have specific expertise. And as we know, German institutions have a lot of expertise in this regard. Germany has specifically linked it in also with another global initiative called Ensure Resilience. So they're recognizing that if you're working on, say, the penetration, increasing the penetration of risk financing or insurance schemes in countries, or if you're working on early warning systems, it's part of a broader effort to build the resilience in these countries, and that we need to be aligning and ensuring coherence as much as possible. So I think we've really benefited. The cruise has benefited a lot from the German engagement. Great,
thanks, John. And then I guess for the IFRC, the effectiveness of early warning systems should not necessarily be measured in terms of disasters we predict, but rather the disasters we prevent. And that means ensuring that early warning systems actually enable early action. So there's no use sort of receiving information if you don't know what it means or know what action to take or have the resources to take action. So how are you supporting early warning systems that actually enable early action in communities at risk? And you mentioned the sort of people-centered approach. So how do you actually take this people-centered approach in practice in your projects?
Well, I could obviously refer to the strong engagement and commitment that we have to address the whole value chain of the early warning systems. I mean, and literally, our board, the steering committee of the countries that are implementing partners, that they commit to working with the women and men in all the countries where you work to engage them, the women and men who need the warnings most, and engage them in the process and so on. However, just mentioning the commitment wouldn't reflect let's say, the operational reality of where we're working and how we are working. So first of all, our technical partners, when they work with a national institution, they have to, and they're held accountable for the way that they engage with the institutions that represent these, as I say, it could be women groups, small-scale farmers, and so on, right at the early stages of the programming to ensure that those perspectives are brought into the projects. That's one thing. And as I say, when the countries report on the progress of the initiative, they have to report on progress. We have 6 sort of outputs, which of course some of them are to build our capacity to better predict and forecast events, but we also report on outputs on how it's contributed to the capacity of the community to be better prepared, to react, and on the warnings. Now, when we look, we have 3 years of operational, let's say, practice behind us now. We have few of our country projects have been able to develop, let's say, to show results against the full chain of the value of the early warning system. It doesn't mean that we're systematically not delivering against this last mile component. Actually, in some countries we've shown that we've had good progress in that area. What I'm saying is that we've rarely been able to show the whole value chain. The fact is, I think that I think the nature of the institutions with which we are working through and the kind of technical expertise they're provided, they have a stronger emphasis on, let's say, the components of the early warning system that are upstream, upfront, the capacity to predict, to forecast, and we have seen more progress in that area, I would say, than in the other areas. And I think we're currently reflecting on how we can strengthen our business model moving forward. We're 5 years after our launch, 3 years into our operations, we're looking at what are the elements which we could strengthen in our business model, and this area of early action is certainly one of the dimensions that we're keen to learn more, to strengthen our partnerships with other institutions, to get better at how we're addressing that component across our portfolio of projects.
Great. Well, I mean, this is certainly something that IFRC would be very happy to support, and it sounds like the priorities are right, and we're very, I think, happy to contribute to ensure that the priorities and the principles are translated into practice and, of course, early action. So then that brings me to my last question, which is then, how do you see IFRC and our network of Red Cross, Red Crescent national societies and their staff and volunteers, together with other locally based organizations, contributing and supporting cruise projects?
Well, I was fortunate in my previous professional life to work in a number of countries where the Red Cross or Red Crescent societies played a very important role in the function of the national setup for managing disaster risk, and specifically when it comes to early warning systems. And actually, just before taking this function here at WMO in the Cruise Secretariat, I was managing the UNDP disaster risk management portfolio in Haiti. And in Haiti, we were working with supporting the national authorities to build up their national systems. And an important component of that system was played by the Haitian Red Cross. And we were working with them to train 3,000 local volunteers across Haiti. And they were very much the front line of the national system. I mean, literally, when those forecasts of the hurricanes would be coming in, they're the ones who'd be going to the small villages that are not always easy access in Haiti. For anyone who's worked in Haiti, it's not always very easy to communicate or get in contact with some of the more remote areas, and that network of volunteers was very much the front line of those efforts. And of course, I mean, I'm not saying these Red Cross Red Crescent, their role is more important than just being a frontline actor and responding. Obviously, they're primary, let's say, contact with some of the communities when it comes to understanding their vulnerability, the most appropriate channels for communication, and so on. So, I think certainly we recognize that, and I think we would be keen to see, to find the ways of more systematically engaging with those institutions, those type of institutions in our country programs, and also working with IFRC at a global level to obviously an important part of our work is also to see how we measure the effectiveness of our work in that regard, and that's something obviously we're also keen on learning more and getting better at. So yeah, I think that's, and of course, I mean, we're paying a lot of attention to the work that IFRC has been doing to strengthen its anticipatory approach to its business model, drawing on a lot of the same type of data information needs that when it comes to predicting events that we're also trying to build the capacities in the country. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for aligning. We recognize that, and I think we'd be keen to see how we can sort of systematize and strengthen that cooperation moving forward.
Brilliant, Jordan. All music to my ears, and I think, as you said, there's tons of opportunity for collaboration and really looking in depth at the specific roles of the National Red Cross Red Crescent societies in the countries that you're looking at developing projects for, and finding the opportunities to collaborate. So I think that's all we have time for at the moment, but I guess I invite anyone watching to reach out to John if they have questions about cruise, or to myself if relevant, on the IFRC. And thank you all for the opportunity to discuss today, and thank you, John, for agreeing to participate in the interview and for contributing. We'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone. Bye.